co-host this morning. Best wishes to Chris Seveny and Eric Hyde. They were originally supposed to join us this morning, but they had some medical issues they were working on, so best wishes to them. Gail, how are things out in Florida this morning?
Fabulous. Hot, but fabulous. I hope it's okay with you in Ohio, too.
Ohio, we have a beautiful day today. So what we are talking about this morning is how to be a social butterfly, really how to maximize the value from conferences. I find myself going to more and more of these, and they can be a lot of fun, but you really want to try to make sure that you're maximizing the value from them.
Yeah.
You don't want to just, be wasting time and money going around and not really getting anything out of it. So these are some tips that I really just thought of a lot of on my own. But then I also did some research to really try to think about the very best ways that I can maximize this. And Gail's going to certainly contribute with any tidbits that she has picked up over her time.
Yep. So
I've come to learn some of the best ways to maximize a conference. You really want to try to make a game plan ahead of time. Make sure you go through and write down some goals. Think about, why are you actually attending? What do you really want to accomplish there? What do you want to learn? What are you really after? Is there anyone in particular that you want to meet? Really think about it ahead of time and try to write it down. Similarly, kind of look over the agenda ahead of time. Are there any really key presentations that you want to hear? Are there any that you don't mind skipping if you really meet someone and have a chance to talk with them?
Mm-hmm.
Gail, any thoughts on that so far?
You're absolutely right, because a lot of the conferences that we attend have multiple events that you want to attend, and you can't be in two places at once. So if you partner with somebody, I found it's beneficial to have them go to one, and then you go to the other one and try to duplicate efforts there. But you're absolutely right, to try to get that agenda ahead of time to plan out to get the maximum bang for your buck.
Exactly. And then keeping along with that theme is try to research the people you want to meet, especially if they are complete strangers. Let's face it, sometimes, it happens to everybody, the best of us, you tend to get a little nervous sometimes. Mm-hmm. If you do a little bit of homework, you can really increase your chances of having a productive and memorable conversation. If even just a few tidbits of information. So what you want to try to do there is, you don't have to try to be a stalker or anything, but just look at people ahead of time and maybe try to Google them. Look at their Facebook page or their LinkedIn page or their other social media sites. Look at their websites. What kind of things are important to them? Do they have any hobbies? What type of things are they working on? Do you and he or she, do you have any mutual friends? Mm-hmm. The more you can find out about someone ahead of time. So for example, if someone wanted to check me out, they'd see I do cycling. They'd see I do, mud races, Spartan races. They'd see I exercise a lot. They'd see I'm a physical therapist. They'd see I'm a writer for Think Realty magazine. They'll see that I've had some speaking engagements. They'll see, that I'm a note investor.
Right.
So the more you can find out about someone ahead of time, and they can say, hey, I've got an uncle who rides his bike, or, I see that you raise a lot of money for cancer research. My mother had cancer, and, thank you very much for riding. I appreciate everything that you do. Mm-hmm. Those are just a couple examples there, right, Gail?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I try to do sometimes is reach out to them via email, exchange phone numbers prior to the conference. Try to set something up. Hey, I'd like to meet you for lunch, something, briefly between sessions, so that you can, interact with them and figure out what you want to accomplish with your networking also. That's very important. If you go to a conference with a couple thousand people, you want to probably target maybe 10. More if you can do it, specific to what you're trying to achieve and what they're trying to achieve too.
Yeah, exactly. You want to try to reach out in advance.
Yes.
You don't have to wait for the event to start connecting. Send someone a text or a social media message ahead of time.
Right.
I did this myself, for example, at our last WCN Mastermind. I was hoping to meet fellow member Cody Cox in person. We had talked several times in the past prior to that via text,
Mm-hmm.
and I just said, hey, we're both going to be there. I'd really like to meet you in person, and I'd like to have the chance to meet up with you. And so the very first day, we went out to lunch together.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry about that, guys. And so just from the very first day, then it really it helped. I had one goal already met by 1:00 p.m. the very first day. So it sets you up for success.
It does.
So kind of another thought along those lines then is consider posting to your social media accounts, if you will be attending an event and you're interested in meeting like-minded folks.
Right.
You can even use the event hashtag. If the event has its own, app, or if it has a Facebook group, consider posting an introduction there.
Mm-hmm.
Just get your name out there. Let people know that, hey, this is who I am. I'm going to this. I'm interested in meeting like-minded people.
Now, you've been to some conferences lately. What would you feel was your most beneficial, both personally and professionally, for networking of recent times?
Boy, you're going to steal my thunder for later on here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The biggest thing is just to engage and just make sure you just talk to people. But hold that thought. Stay tuned for just a minute.
Okay.
So,
sorry about that.
No, that's okay. It's okay. We're all friends here. Along with that line of plan ahead, plan your outfits. This is going to sound really funny.
Plan your outfits from a guy. Okay. I thought it was just a...
Nope. It should be everybody. You want to look nice. You want to put your best foot forward.
Yeah.
The old saying, you only have one chance to make a first impression.
Right.
But in addition, even consider the weather. I went to, as Gail mentioned, I went to San Diego for the Magnify Your Wealth conference a couple of weeks ago. And, I'm from Ohio. And the impression is that San Diego is just the land of milk and honey. It's 76 degrees and sunny there every single day. So I just brought shorts and I guess I brought some khakis, but I didn't bring a single long sleeve shirt. And I got there, and all week long, or the whole time I was there, it was colder than it was in Ohio by about 8 degrees or so. Yeah. So it was still really nice. It was a beautiful city. I really enjoyed my time there, but just kind of look ahead and plan your outfits and consider the weather.
Absolutely.
So, if you are, go ahead, Gail.
One thought about attending conferences, we have a comment about hanging out in bars where you might be able to talk with the people that are attending and also network with people that might be interested in investing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another thought I was going to get to here.
Sorry, I'm going to sit back.
Back to the actual event here. We're doing the there's preparation. Mm-hmm. So if you are traveling, also consider any time difference and how you can minimize this. Whether you're, gaining time or losing time, you want to keep that in mind and make good decisions. When I went from Ohio to San Diego, they are 3 hours behind us. So I knew the conference started at 8 a.m. the first day. So that's like 5 a.m. my time. So instead of going out the very first night there and meeting Eric Hyde, I purposely stayed in and went to bed early so that I would, be well rested and I could wake up and, make it to the conference on time. Mm-hmm. So, and right along those lines then, perfect segue here. I do encourage people to try to arrive early. This gives you a chance to just talk to more people, really. And then the other thing, quite practically, then you can kind of choose your favorite seat. You're maybe not stuck in the back if you really wanted to move up, so you could, see the speaker, or, if they're presenting slides, you can get a better view of the slides. You might also be able to avoid sitting by someone you'd prefer not to. That's the old early bird gets the worm. So there's a lot to be said for that also. So,
Right.
As you're preparing for the conference, also prepare your elevator pitch ahead of time. You want to rehearse it. I guarantee if you don't ahead of time, it's not going to come across as polished. You'll kind of be fumbling for words. You won't say something maybe as well as you meant to. It's not necessarily a complete fail if you don't do it properly, but again, you want to try to put your best foot forward.
Right.
So just having 30 seconds or so of your elevator pitch ahead of time, know what you want to say and know how you want to say it.
What is your elevator pitch, if I may ask?
My elevator pitch?
Yeah.
Boy, I was preparing to speak, but my name is Bill Griesmer. I work very hard to try to keep people in their homes, and in doing that, I provide good returns for investors. We do this by buying and selling mortgage notes. And, that's maybe 15 to 20 seconds. I think I forgot one sentence. But again, if I was going to a conference, I would have made sure that I really rehearsed that ahead of time.
Right.
I used to be a lot more technical with it, but I have learned, and from others actually, you don't want to be super technical. You're just after kind of oh, really? Tell me more about that. That right there is the reaction that you're after. It's not so much how much technical information can I get across here in 30 seconds or even 60 seconds.
Right.
Sometimes that'll just confuse people. You're just trying to get across 3 messages tops. And, the main 2 that I had there, and part of it is my business strategy. Number 1, I try to keep people in their homes. Number 2, I do work with investors. Number 3, we provide decent returns. Those are the 3 key points that I'm trying to make just in the first 30 seconds.
How much value do you put on business cards?
I put a pretty large value on it. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Also, I personally find it really, really important. That was something I talked about at Magnify Your Wealth. I was really amazed how many people did not have a business card.
Wow.
I was really just amazed by that. And then it just makes you look, again, not quite as put together. If you're, well, I can just write it on a piece of paper for you, it makes you look like you're not really serious about what it is you're doing. Or, I guess this is better if they have like a digital card and they say, well, let me get on my phone here and I can send this to you digitally. I guess that's better than not having anything. But even with that, then you're kind of looking down at your phone. You're kind of fumbling there instead of really being able to look someone in the eye and say, look, this is who I am. It just improves your communication, the whole personal touch, being able to look at someone and answer any questions they have. You can kind of read the conversation better. Again, if you're just looking down at your phone, I just don't think it shows you in quite the best light. What do you think, Gail?
I agree. I've used electronic business cards. I tend to like those too because you capture information about the person you're talking with. I've had occasion where someone says, oh my gosh, this is my last business card. So I offer to take a photo of it so that I can get the business information, the business card information, but not feel that I'm taking their last card unless they want to offer.
Right. Again, it's all about your comfort level and what you like to do. I know some people, especially with Infusionsoft, I believe they have a service where Infusionsoft will actually input that information from a business card into a database. That works out great if that really works for you.
Right.
And then with business cards also, make sure, I tell you what, I'm going to get to that in a minute. I just want to, before I forget, I lose my place here. I want to make sure you're also ready to talk about your work then. You know, we just talked about your 30-second elevator pitch. Also be ready if they give you the reaction you're looking for. Huh, that's really interesting. Tell me more about it. How long you been doing that? Just be ready to talk about your work. Have, again, 3. There's a lot of power in the number 3. Have 3 interesting or compelling talking points about your business. Maybe 3 case studies that you have done recently that you can speak about, or 3 lessons you have learned, something along those lines. Right. Again, just be ready to talk, and this should relate to your ideal client. And try to make it, at least a little bit unique, be memorable, but also be concise. So, then once you finally get to the conference itself, in the words of Jean-Luc Picard, engage. Meet lots of people. Move around during the conference, put yourself out there. You can never quite tell in advance who you will click with or who you might meet at a conference that can help you. Right. Yes, you will meet, you can learn from speakers' presentations, but there's also a lot of benefit to be had from meeting and talking with others. I mentioned earlier, you're probably wasting your time and money if you just go to these things and you just sit in a corner. Gail, thoughts on that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The retention factor from conferences, it tends to be a little bit low unless you get home and you start implementing it. And then also networking that's our whole game, is networking to learn and meet other people. Absolutely.
So again, make yourself a goal. Try to set, 5 engaging conversations with 5 different people. Maybe even go one step further. Try to make them strangers. I'm not even talking about people you already know, maybe through social media, and then you meet for the first time. That's kind of that's a 6-inch gimme putt. Try to get out there and really meet strangers that, you don't even know. Right. I know at Magnify Your Wealth, I met and became friends with Yvonne Love and Jason Munson there. Both of them very different people. They had very different businesses, really didn't have much to do at all with note investing, but I learned something from them. They learned something from me. Those are just 2 off the top of my head. I actually ended up having dinner right next to someone who, sent me a tape. You can never tell just by looking at someone who might end up adding value to your life. That was something, if I remember right, Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers, one of the top salespeople talked about that. And his point was a lot of other salespeople, they try to look at people right from the time they walked in the door, and they would try to kind of decide in advance who would buy and who would not. And the top salesperson did exactly the opposite. He treated every single client like they were going to buy from him. Right. So that was just an interesting take on that, I still remember just out of the back recesses of my mind several years later.
Do you ever use the form method of breaking ice with people?
Why don't you tell us a little about that? I think I've done some of that, but the VOR?
Form, F-O-R-M?
Oh, yes. But why don't you tell them about it?
Okay, it's family, occupation, recreation, and motivation.
Yep,
exactly. And, you sit there, and have you ever noticed that when someone asks you or you ask them, so where are you, what do you do, or where are you from, it automatically leads into polite conversation of, well, what do you do and where are you from?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a get out of jail free card. Jail is the wrong word, but if you got nothing else to fall back on, just kind of think of that in the back of your head, and hopefully that's something to kind of, get you through.
Right.
So, you mentioned business cards earlier. It's really important to have a contact information strategy. Mm-hmm. And the whole point is it's similar to business cards, but you can end up with contact information just all over the place. You might have a pile of business cards. You might have some digital cards. Someone might, write their phone number on a napkin and hand it to you. You might have contact information or a note to look up scribbled on the corner of a notebook page. You want to try to organize all that information for it to be really useful. Maybe anything that, does not have physical form, you put it all in one centralized spot, even like one pocket, okay? Or even your business cards, everything goes into one pocket. Or you specify one single sheet, maybe the first page in your notebook. This is for any information that is not already on a physical business card. And right there, I met John Doe, and this is his phone number. It's all on one single page. Something along those lines. In addition, if you do have business cards, I encourage people, try to, within a very short time, by the end of that night minimum, just take 1 minute and just try to write down 1, 2, 3 things about that person that you remembered. David Hardcastle, I remember I met him at the Mastermind, and he's a cyclist like I am. So when I got his card, I just wrote cyclist, and that gives me something to remember about him. Anything, just something unique, just to try to remember something about people. And that perfectly segues then into just try to have some follow-up then, and try to send thank you notes, or it was a really nice to meet you note or something very soon after you meet someone at a conference while you are still in someone's mind. And again, then that's when you use that information that you just wrote. Hey, it's really great to hear you're a cyclist also. I'll have to come out there to California and try to check out those hills with you sometime. Or, it sounds, it's really nice to hear that you've got some notes in the Midwest and Ohio. Something along those lines. Or the examples are really just about endless. Right, Gail?
Yeah, absolutely. People like to try to find common things, similarities and commonalities, both interests or where they live or what they like to do, or even occupations. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So then when you get home, try to review your notes. And I encourage people to do this pretty soon after they get home from a conference. I know sometimes you just want to get home and then you're immediately starting to catch up on activities that you had to put off to the side or such while you're at the conference. But I would say within a couple days minimum, try to get home and really review your notes. What did you learn? What do you need to change? What did you learn that you need to try to implement? And along those lines, try to change, even if it's not something from the conference itself specifically, try to make just one small change immediately. The same day if at all possible. For example, I made a video some time ago about my vision board. And when I got home from Magnify Your Wealth, I realized I had taken that down to put something else up, and I had it down where I really couldn't see it. And so that night, I believe, I went to my bedroom and I just took down a different painting that I had up on the wall. And I have that vision board up there. And so every single morning before I even leave my bedroom, it just helps me to focus a little bit and say, all right, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it just helps you, again, engage the day, carpe diem, seize the day.
Do you have personal and professional items on your vision board?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, good.
I think I've got a video on my YouTube channel if anyone wants to see it again. It got a lot of really positive attention, both personal and professional goals.
Good.
Or, if there's something at your house that you've been meaning to clean up forever, then just clean that up. The whole point is you're trying to make some type of change immediately.
Right.
So you're not just going home and going back to the same old every single time. You're trying to turn the page and saying, you're starting with a clean slate.
Right.
So that's kind of what I had for conferences. I've got a little bit more content here about networking, Gail, but did you have any other thoughts on conferences or how to make the most of a conference either before or during or afterwards, or any other tips that you've picked up over the years?
Well, you've picked up on the main items, as part of the networking. Both you and I have been to conferences, before and after note investing in our lives. And one of the things that I focused on, in other professions was to go ahead and, when I worked for the government, was to start implementing things right away when I got back. Otherwise, you forget about them. And you don't want to do that. So you've hit on the big heavy hitters. We did have a question from Scott Carson. He says, have you ever read Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi? I personally haven't, but have you had a chance to read that book?
No, that's another book I think that I have read like an article about the book, but I have not read the actual book. It's my understanding the whole theme of the book is, the title spells it out, never eat alone. Always try to meet someone, do something, even eating. And I actually did do that once. I met someone at just a restaurant, and sometimes you just feel really awkward, sitting there eating all by yourself. This was some time ago, I think, before I even had like a smartphone or something. Now you can kind of lose yourself in that. But I actually did just walk up to someone and introduce myself, and it feels sometimes you can feel intrusive, but if you just do it friendly, the vast majority of people will, give you the benefit of the doubt. I mean, they were kind of just sitting there the same as I was. And, I think we exchanged cards. I didn't end up staying in touch with them, but, you just never know. Again, that could have been someone that might have been able to help my business quite a bit. You can network anywhere. There's stories about, I met someone on an airplane. And, you're sitting there for an hour or two, sometimes people just don't want to talk at all. And that has been me sometimes. And, you can just network anywhere.
Right.
And, just one other thought that I'll talk a little bit about is kind of getting out of your own way. A lot of people, especially my note friends, have really improved with this over the years, but to be perfectly honest, I'm kind of a shy person a lot of times, believe it or not. You can ask my wife; she'll agree with you. And I guess I just, you realize at some point what we talked about. Really try to think about what it is you're trying to accomplish and how to best go about it. And I finally just kind of realized if you just keep to yourself, you're not really going to progress as much as you want to. So even if it's difficult and, you just got to get out there and do it. And if, the stuff we talked about today is kind of daunting to you, if meeting 5 people is difficult, then just try to meet just one person. You got to put yourself out there though. And you can't just say, I'm introverted, I, can't meet people, that kind of thing. I really truly believe this, and this is both personal and professional. Every single person can teach someone else something.
Right. Well, you can't be very introverted in this business, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So a couple other tips then for networking just in general. Take a look at around you and look at the networks that you already have in place also. A lot of people, we know so many people, and new opportunities can arise from people you already met. Communicating your what you're trying to get across, your message, it also helps you make more credibility, and you just want to make sure you've got at least some substance. That's kind of what we were talking about also, making sure you really think through what it is you're trying to communicate ahead of time.
Right.
And, a couple other phrases, most of us can't just show up at an event and stand around and expect people to come up and talk to us. The celebrities of the world can do that, even kind of the like local or business celebrities. You might be able to consider Scott one of those. The vast majority of us, though, we can't just stand around and expect people to come up to us. You got to go out and make it happen yourself.
Right.
Kind of what we're also talking about also, don't be afraid to exit quickly from a conversation that's not a good match. The more people you meet, like I said, I don't mean this as a contradiction of what I just said. I do think everybody can learn from other people, but there's some people that you're just not going to click with, or you're not going to fit with really well in life. And you know what? That's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make them a bad person. Sometimes people, just for whatever reason, they don't, do exactly well together, and just don't try to keep pounding a square peg into a round hole.
Right.
So, networking, again, just try to be honest and sincere, and hopefully both parties get some value from it. So, kind of my last note here that I was going to talk about, and I was just thinking about this during the game last night. Some of you know, actually, when I was in college, I had an internship with the Cleveland Cavaliers. It was kind of it was kind of a dream come true at the time. And that whole happened because of networking. The way it worked out, I went to Ohio University. I have a degree in journalism. And we were having a conference, and Bob Price, who was the director of public relations for the Cavaliers at the time, the team had missed the playoffs that year.
Oh.
And I know it's an awe, but he couldn't have come to that conference if the team was in the playoffs. So it kind of ended up working out. And, I was only, 20 years old? But I went into that conference. I had one goal. One. That was to meet Bob Price.
Wow.
And I even said, if everything works out just right, I'm going to make this happen. And I did. I remember being so nervous and unsure of myself, but I just had the chance to sit down with him, and after talking with him for an hour and a half, I had an internship. And
wow, that's awesome.
It was amazing because, then when I was actually on my internship, they get literally hundreds per year of people that wanted to be exactly where I was. So, that's kind of an example of exactly what I'm talking about. And that was so long ago. But, I got to meet all the team. I was on Sports Center and that type of thing. I met Michael Jordan very briefly. I met Larry Bird briefly. He was my idol at the time.
Nice.
I was, really just part of the team. And then I was able to parlay that then, again, through networking. The general manager of the Cavs, Wayne Embry, he was on USA Basketball, part of the Olympic movement. And so I was then able to parlay that internship into another internship with the U.S. Olympic Committee. So,
wow, Bill.
Yeah. See,
we got a
that's what I mean.
Here.
I know Gail a little bit, and she didn't know this stuff about me. So
I didn't know that Patty Penn was a movie star either. So
right. So my point is, you can make good things happen with networking, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from. It just starts with being willing to take some risks and really put yourself out there. So we're starting to get there on time, Gail. Those are my top key giveaways. If someone is interested, I've put this again into the format of a handout, similar to what I did last week when I spoke with Katie Mouton, kind of my how to be a social butterfly and how to maximize value from conferences. If anyone is interested, they can feel free to direct message me on Facebook, or they can put their email in the comments, or they can send their email to me. I'd be happy to listen. I'll write my email in the comments just so everybody has that. And I think that does it for me for right now. Do we have any other questions, or Gail, do you have other comments?
Yeah, we have a couple of questions and comments, and one of them is, do you find that the most successful people are the most approachable at events?
In general, yes.
Well,
you
why
know,
do you
you
think
might
that?
have,
Yeah, why do you think that is?
that's because that's a big part of the deal. You know, how do you think that's probably part of the reason they got so successful? You know, I've read Bill Gates. I mean, he's obviously one of the most successful people in the whole world.
Right.
You know, I've read that, you know, he's not really a people person, but again, he started his whole path to success by getting a contract at IBM. You know, that required some networking right there. So yes, I would say in general, you know, successful people are very approachable. I remember at Note Expo the year before last, I had the chance to meet, you know, the keynote speaker, and I just went up and introduced myself and said, hey, you know, I'm Bill Griesmer, and it's really nice to meet you. And I paid attention enough to know a couple key points about what he had talked about, and I was just able to use that as a springboard then to a conversation. And you know, his name's Matt Burke, and you know, we've stayed in touch. You know, he lives in a different state. We're not drinking buddies or anything, but it's just, and he's obviously a very, very successful person. So yes, in general, I'd agree. Successful people are generally pretty approachable.
What do you spend time talking with vendors when you go to any of these events also to try to network and do FaceTime? If you, I not FaceTime on FaceTime, but some in real life time with them.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. Who do you think, if you're with a servicer, for example, and you've got, you know, one of their clients, you both, two people hire the same servicer, and one of the clients, you know, that person, say it's Shantae, she doesn't know who that person is. She's never talked with them in person. Doesn't really know anything at all about them. Might recognize the name, but certainly has never seen their face. They've never contacted her. And then the other person, just the opposite. Shantae, oh yeah, I remember, you know, talking to Bill and meeting him at DME, and yeah, he did that cycling thing, and he's raising money for cancer, and you know, he's the one. He worked out that really difficult note, and then he gave us the business from that. Yeah, I remember Bill. If they both call her at the same time, who do you think? It's just human nature. I'm not saying anybody would purposely ignore somebody, but who do you think they're probably going to pay attention to first? It's someone that they already know.
Right, that they're kind of building a relationship with. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So
because
yes.
How many times have you heard people say, it's good to put a name with a face?
Yeah, exactly. So yes, by all means, it's a really good idea to meet vendors and, you know, people in your both personal but especially business network. They can help you. They can make life easier for you. They can save you money and time sometimes. So yes, by all means, make sure you even talk to vendors.
Yeah.
Any others?
Running through it, I think we kind of I weaved everything in as we were going along a little bit.
Okay.
So I think we've pretty much covered everything. We'll, yeah, as you said, we'll go ahead and put our contact information in there, and so folks know how to get a hold of us.
I have a question. This is God.
Yes, God.
It's not my time yet, God.
What about asking for introductions from people? If you're trying to meet somebody but don't know the person, do you find that valuable?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Bill, go ahead and jump in there, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't know somebody, try to introduce them. If, like, you know, they're a friend of yours, but they're a stranger to the person you're talking to, try to make an introduction there. But again, that's what it comes back to. Be ready ahead of time. Be willing to put yourself out there. Be ready and able to look someone in the eye and say, yeah, I'm Bill Griesmer, I'm a note investor, and your elevator pitch, which I gave earlier, I look to help keep people in their homes, and I provide returns to investors. We do that by buying and selling mortgage notes.
Right. And I
have an introduction ready.
Yeah, and I've asked people to, if they don't mind giving me an introduction to a certain person that I've wanted to meet at a conference, and saying, hey, do you mind introducing me to this person? So, going up to them cold, and then having that relationship or commonality before you can do that is very, very valuable, I think.
You know what? One thing.
Final question. I have a question for Bill yet.
Go ahead.
How many games do you think it's going to take the Warriors to win the series?
Oh,
oh man. Oh man. Well, my heart says Cavs in 6, but my head's got to go Warriors in 5. How's that?
Not bad at all.
And just this one time, let the heart win. The heart deserves a win. Come on now.
I granted that with Cleveland winning 2 years ago.
Yeah, we might have used up the all that karma, for 50 years of misery. Might have used it all up in 2016.
Put your faith in the Browns this year. Playoffs for the Browns.
My faith in the Browns. Oh wow. I think I really might have better luck watching that pig flying out the window.
Wow. Well, see, that's a perfect example of a commonality not associated with business that you can talk with folks about. And then it's like, oh, yeah, Bill and Scott, they do notes. Have something different, too, as far as an approach to folks.
That's correct. That's the R in the form method, the recreation side. Did you watch the game last night? Did you watch J.R. Smith botch the rebound last night? Did you see Stephon Curry hit 9 3-pointers? Yes, we gave him the touch from the Holy Land last night from downtown.
Yes, he did have that, and I want to say, God, I think it was your arch nemesis there, the devil-possessed J.R. Smith for 4.7 seconds, and yes, God, you should have seen me yelling at my TV and wondering, well, never mind my language that was used there, God.
I am the all-seen, Bill. The all-seen.
There might have been a couple of comments directed toward my TV over the last 4.7 seconds, along with really everybody else on the team, because anyone else on the team could have called timeout also. I will say that. So it's not 100% of the blame on JR, but certainly to be dribbling away from the basket when the game is tied, it does not strike me as a very intelligent conversation. He did not think out ahead of time. He did not think out ahead of time.
It's kind of hard to dribble. It's kind of hard to dribble and call timeout at the same time.
But he did not think this out ahead of time. See, if he'd been listening to the No Closers podcast, it would have been a whole different story. The Cavs would have been up 1-0. The Cavs would have had confidence. They would have had home court. Kevin Durant wilts under pressure. The Cavs' confidence
processes. Yeah.
Once again, the point here being recreation is a great way to be an icebreaker towards talking with people at conferences. Good job,
That's
guys.
Exactly
Good job.
Correct.
Oh, man. We're losing control here.
I never thought I'd be doing First Take with God this morning.
You just never know. In this
we'll
business,
talk to you all later. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Have a really good day. Thank you very much for listening.
Yep. Y'all have a great day. Thanks, Bill. It was good. And it's been great talking to you and Scott and God at the same time. That's amazing.
Thank you.
All righty.